The village of Silverwood Glade wasn't just a place on a map. It was a sigh, a secret, a soft melody woven into the heart of the world. Nestled deep within the ancient, sprawling, whispering woods, it drew its very essence from the forest that cradled it. Here, houses weren't built, they were grown. Sturdy timbers of luminous silverbark trees, their branches still reaching for the sky, their roots still dreaming deep in the earth, forming walls and roofs and floors that hummed with a quiet living magic. Moss, soft as a kitten's fur, carpeted the paths, and glowworms, like scattered jewels, lit the evenings with their gentle pulsing light. Elara knew every twist of those mossy paths, every creak of the silverbark houses, every secret nook where the fireflies danced. She was a child of Silverwood Glade, with eyes the color of forest pools at dusk and hair like spun moonlight. Her 8th summer was just beginning to unfurl, bringing with it the sweet scent of honeysuckle and the persistent, almost irresistible call of the woods. Most people in Silverwood Glade heard the whispering as a gentle hum, a comforting rustle in the leaves, a lullaby carried on the breeze. It was the collective breath of the ancient forest, they said, a soothing presence that watched over them. But for Elara, it was more. Much more. From her earliest memories, the whispering had been a constant companion, a chorus of soft, almost words that seemed to weave themselves into her very thoughts. It wasn't a voice, not exactly, but a feeling, a knowing, a delicate tapestry of forgotten stories and half-remembered dreams. It spoke of sunlight filtering through emerald canopies, of roots intertwining beneath the earth, of the slow, patient dance of seasons. It felt like the forest itself was sharing its deepest secrets, just for her. Her grandmother, Lyra, a woman with eyes as wise and wrinkled as an old oak's bark, often watched Elara with a knowing smile. "You hear them, don't you, little sprout?" she'd ask, her voice like warm honey. "The old voices." Elara would nod, tracing patterns in the dew-kissed grass with her bare toes. "They tell me about the star moss, Nana, how it only blooms when the twin moons are full and the forest holds its breath." Lyra would chuckle, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Aye, the star moss, a rare sight indeed. Most folks just know it as a pretty glow, but the whispering, it knows its true name, its true heart." The whispering woods were not like ordinary forests. Here, trees did not merely stand, they communicated. The silverbark trees, their trunks gleaming softly even in the dimmest light, were the main inhabitants, but there were also the ancient dream oaks, their leaves shimmering with iridescent hues, and the whisper willows, their long trailing branches seeming to hum with unseen currents. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors, their petals sometimes pulsing with a soft luminescence, and tiny, winged creatures, no bigger than a thumb, darted through the air, leaving trails of sparkling dust. Magic was not a force to be wielded here, but a living, breathing part of the world, as natural as the air itself. It flowed through the roots of the trees, shimmered in the dew on the spiderwebs, and danced in the laughter of the children. It was the reason the village thrived, shielded from the harshness of the outer world, living in harmony with the ancient magic that permeated every leaf and stone. Elara's days were a blend of chores and quiet exploration. She helped her mother, Anya, weave luminous moth silk into sturdy cloth, a process that involved humming specific tunes to the silkworms to encourage their iridescent threads. She helped her father, Bran, tend the root gardens where vegetables grew not from seeds but from tiny, glowing root sprites. And every afternoon, after her lessons with Lyra, lessons that focused more on understanding the language of the forest than on reading books, Elara would wander. Her favorite place was a clearing deep within the woods, where a circle of ancient dream oaks stood sentinel around a pool of water so clear it seemed to reflect not just the sky, but the very stars themselves, even in broad daylight. This was the moon pool, and it was here that the whispering felt strongest. One particularly warm afternoon, the air thick with the scent of pine and wild mint, Elara set out for the moon pool. Her mother had asked her to gather some moonberries, small, pearl-like fruits that grew only in the shade of the dream oaks, and were prized for their ability to bring sweet dreams. As she stepped onto the mossy path, the whispering greeted her. It was a soft, undulating current, like water flowing over smooth stones. Today, it felt different, more insistent. Not loud, never loud, but with a new urgency, a subtle tremor beneath its usual soothing presence. Something stirs, it seemed to say, or rather, feel. against the edges of her mind. One need shifting. A change. Ain't how now? Elara paused, her small hand resting on the rough bark of a silverbark tree. The tree itself seemed to shiver slightly, sending a faint vibration through her palm. She closed her eyes, letting the whispers wash over her. They were a jumble of sensations, the feeling of dry earth, the scent of something ancient and metallic, a faint echo of sorrow. It wasn't just the usual gentle hum of life. This was something else. A faint undercurrent of unease. She continued on, her senses heightened. The familiar sounds of the forest, the chirping of skylarks, the rustle of tiny leaf sprites, the distant gurgle of the sun-drip stream, seemed a little subdued. The air felt heavier, as if holding its breath. When she reached the moonpool clearing, the silence was striking. Usually the clearing was alive with the gentle buzz of pollen fairies and the soft splash of glowfish in the pool. Today it was utterly still. The surface of the moonpool, usually rippling with hidden currents, lay perfectly calm, reflecting the deep blue sky like a polished mirror. Even the dream oaks, whose iridescent leaves usually shimmered with a myriad of colors, seemed muted, their hues dulled to a soft, almost mournful green. Elara walked to the edge of the pool, her small basket clutched in her hand. The moonberries, usually plump and luminous, seemed to cling to their branches with less vigor, their pearl-like sheen a little faded. She picked a few, but her heart wasn't in it. The whispering here was stronger, a low thrum that vibrated in her chest. Listen, it urged. Beyond dots. Beyond the familiar. In and himnia. She looked around the clearing, her eyes scanning the familiar ancient trees. Then her gaze fell upon something she had never noticed before. At the base of the largest dream oak, one whose gnarled roots formed a natural archway, was a small dark opening. It wasn't a hollow she'd seen before, or perhaps it had always been there, perfectly camouflaged, waiting to be noticed. It was barely larger than her head, shrouded by thick moss and trailing vines. Curiosity, a powerful current in Elara's young heart, pulled her closer. She knelt, pushing aside the moss. Inside it was dark, but she could feel a faint draft, carrying with it that strange, ancient, metallic scent the whispering had hinted at. And a sound. A very, very faint, almost imperceptible clinking. Her imagination, always vivid, conjured images of forgotten treasures, of tiny forest creatures making their homes in hidden places. But the whispering around her wasn't speaking of playful sprites or lost trinkets. It was a deeper current now, a pulse of caution mixed with an undeniable pull. Ego deepa Shindent whispered, but with open eyes. Or, Simil. Elara hesitated. Her grandmother had always warned her about venturing too far off the known paths, not because of danger, but because the deeper magic of the woods could be overwhelming for those not ready. Yet, this felt different. This felt like an invitation, not a warning. Taking a deep breath, she reached a tentative finger into the opening. Her fingertip brushed against something smooth and cold, like polished stone, but also something else. A faint, almost imperceptible warmth pulsed from within. A warmth that was not heat, but rather a resonance, a vibration that hummed through her bone. Suddenly, the whispering surged, not into words but into a vivid image in her mind. A glimmering light, deep within a labyrinth of roots, and a feeling of something precious, something vital, slowly dimming. This was not a fleeting thought or a playful suggestion. This was a message. A plea, perhaps. Elara looked back at the moon pool, then at the muted dream oaks. The stillness of the clearing, the subtle dulling of the forest's magic, suddenly made sense. The whispering wasn't just telling her about a change, it was reacting to it. She pulled her hand back, a prickle of unease running down her spine. What could be deep inside the ancient dream oak that was causing the very essence of the forest to dim? Returning home, her basket only half full of moonberries, Elara felt a new weight settle upon her small shoulders. The familiar paths of Silverwood Glade, usually so comforting, now seemed to hum with an unspoken question. The silverbark houses, usually radiating warmth, felt a little cooler. That evening, as the twin moons, Luna and Lunella, began their slow ascent in the sky, casting their soft silver glow over the village, Elara sat by the hearth with her grandmother. The fire, fed by glowing emberwood, crackled merrily, but Elara's mind was far away, deep in the roots of the dream oak. "Nana," she began, her voice a little softer than usual. "Do the whispering woods ever change?" Lyra's knitting needles, crafted from polished moonhorn, paused their rhythmic click. She looked at Elara, her wise eyes seeing far more than a simple question. "All things change, little sprout. Even the oldest trees drop their leaves and grow new ones. The question is, what kind of change are you thinking of?" Elara hesitated, trying to put the tangled sensations and images into words. Today, at the moon pool, it felt quiet. The glowfish weren't swimming. The dream oaks looked sad. And the whispering, it felt like it was trying to tell me something important, something urgent. Lyra leaned forward, her gaze intense. "And what did it tell you, Elara?" "It showed me a light deep down and a feeling of it dimming. And there was a new opening, at the base of the biggest dream oak. I felt something cold and smooth, and then warm, like a pulse." Lyra's face, usually serene, tightened almost imperceptibly. She reached out and took Elara's small hand, her touch surprisingly strong. "The heartstone," she murmured, almost to herself. "It stirs again." Elara's eyes widened. "The heartstone? What is that, Nana?" Lyra sighed, a long, weary sound. "It is the very core of the Whispering Woods, child. A living crystal, buried deep beneath the roots of the ancient dream oaks, that pulses with the purest magic of this land. It is what allows the trees to speak, the flowers to glow, the water to heal. It is the reason Silverwood Glade thrives, shielded from the shadows that linger beyond our borders." "But why is it dimming?" Elara asked, a knot forming in her stomach. "And why did the whispering tell me?" "Because, little sprout, you are one of the rare few who can truly hear it, truly understand its language. The heartstone is connected to everything and everyone in these woods. But its deepest connection is to those with the purest hearts, those who listen without prejudice, those who understand that magic is not something to be controlled, but to be loved." Lyra paused, her gaze distant, as if seeing into the past. "Long ago, before even my time, there were others who could hear the whispering as clearly as you. They were called the Whisper Keepers. They tended to the heartstone, ensuring its light never faltered. But over generations, their numbers dwindled. People forgot how to truly listen. The whispering became a gentle background hum, and the heartstone was left to its own slow, patient pulse." "But it's not patient now, is it, Mantimed?" Elara pressed, sensing the urgency in her grandmother's voice. Lyra shook her head. "No. If the whispering is speaking to you of a dimming light, then something is troubling the heartstone. Something is draining its power. And if the heartstone fades, Silverwood Glade will fade with it. The magic will leave the trees, the glow will leave the flowers, and the protection it offers will vanish." A cold dread seeped into Elara's heart. She looked out the window at the familiar, comforting glow of the silverbark trees under the twin moons. The thought of that light fading, of the magic leaving, was unbearable. "What can we do, Nana?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Lyra stroked Elara's hair. "For now we listen, we observe. But if the heartstone truly is in peril, then someone must awaken the old ways. Someone must remember how to tend to it, how to rekindle its light. And perhaps that someone is you, little sprout." Elara stared at her grandmother, a mix of fear and a strange, thrilling sense of purpose stirring within her. Her? A whisper keeper? It was a daunting thought. She was only Elara, a girl who loved to wander the woods and listen to the secrets of the trees. The next morning, Elara awoke with the sun, the whispering already a strong current in her mind. It felt more agitated than ever, a chorus of faint, worried murmurs. She dressed quickly, eager to return to the moon pool, to that mysterious opening, to understand more. She found Lyra already up, preparing a simple breakfast of spiced berry bread and warm honey milk. "Going back to the clearing, aren't you?" Lyra said, a small smile playing on her lips. Elara nodded, her mouth full of bread. "I need to see it again, Nana, to listen closer." "Be careful, child," Lyra warned, her smile fading slightly. The deeper magic is not to be trifled with. The Heartstone's slumber has been long and peaceful. Whatever disturbs it now may not be peaceful. Armed with her grandmother's words and a growing sense of determination, Elara made her way back through the woods. The forest still felt subdued, the colors a little less vibrant, the sounds a little more hushed. Even the usually playful leaf sprites seemed to dart about with a newfound seriousness. When she reached the moon pool, the silence was even more profound. The air felt heavy, almost oppressive. The opening at the base of the dream oak seemed to pulse faintly, as if breathing. The metallic scent was stronger now, mixed with something else, something subtly bitter. Elara knelt, peering into the dark opening. The faint clinking sound she'd heard yesterday was clearer now, a rhythmic, almost mechanical egg tick-ticking deep within the earth. It was a sound utterly alien to the natural symphony of the whispering woods. She reached her hand in again, this time pushing deeper, past the first smooth surface. Her fingers brushed against rough earth, then something else. Something hard and angular, almost like a piece of broken machinery, but made of a strange dark stone she didn't recognize. And from it emanated the bitter scent. The whispering surged, a cacophony of urgent feelings. Intrusion. Disharmony. Nes. Ori. Disharmony. Danger. It's she. Elara gasped, pulling her hand back sharply. The metallic bitter scent clung to her fingertips. This wasn't a natural disturbance. This felt unnatural, like a wound in the very heart of the forest. She stood up, her heart pounding. The rhythmic itik-tik-tik-ik-a echoed faintly from the opening. It was unsettling, a stark contrast to the organic, flowing magic of the whispering woods. She looked around the clearing, her eyes searching. The dream oaks, their leaves still muted, seemed to sag, their ancient wisdom heavy with sorrow. The moon pool, usually a source of serene reflection, now seemed to hold a dark, unmoving quality, as if its depths were troubled. This wasn't just a dimming. This was an active drain. The whispering pressed in, conveying a sense of urgency, of time slipping away. It wanted her to understand, to act. But what could a child do against a force that was troubling the very heartstone of the woods? As she stood there, a faint shimmer of light caught her eye, deeper in the clearing, nestled amongst a cluster of whisper willows. It was a faint, almost invisible pathway, one she had never noticed before, even though she had played in this clearing countless times. It seemed to pulse with a faint, iridescent glow, beckoning her. The whispering softened, becoming a guiding current, leading her towards it. This way. Oh. The path. Hidden. The path to knowing. Nanimor. Kaala. Elara approached the shimmer cautiously. It wasn't a path of moss or earth, but a shimmering curtain of light, woven between the trailing branches of the whisper willows. As she reached out, her hand passed through it as if it were mist, yet she felt a tingling sensation, like 1,000 tiny bells ringing in her skin. Stepping through, the world around her changed. The clearing, though still visible, seemed to recede, becoming a distant, hazy memory. She found herself in a narrow, winding corridor of light, its walls shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow, shifting and swirling like liquid starlight. The air here was warm and sweet, filled with the scent of unknown blossoms and the softest, most melodious hum she had ever heard, the purest form of the whispering she had ever encountered. She was no longer in the physical world of Silverwood Glade. She was in a place between, a pathway woven by the magic of the woods itself. The corridor led her deeper, curving gently, the light around her pulsing rhythmically, mirroring her own heartbeat. The whispering here was not a jumble of sensations, but a clear, melodic voice, not in words, but in pure understanding. It spoke of the history of the woods, of the first whisper keepers, of the Heartstone's ancient power. It spoke of a time when the veil between worlds was thinner, when magic flowed freely, openly. And then, it spoke of a shadow, a creeping coldness from beyond the woods, a desire to harness, to control, to drain the natural magic for unnatural purposes. It showed her faint, fleeting images, dark figures moving silently, strange contraptions of metal and shadow. A distant, ominous fortress. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the wonder. This wasn't just a natural disturbance. This was an attack. The corridor of light ended abruptly in a small circular chamber. Here, the light was softer, emanating from a single central pillar of shimmering crystal. It wasn't the Heartstone itself, Alara instinctively knew, but a conduit, a memory keeper. As she stepped into the chamber, the crystal pillar flared, and images began to swirl within its depths, like a living tapestry of light. She saw a village much like Silverwood Glade, but larger, older, its silverbark houses reaching higher. She saw people, dressed in robes woven with luminous threads, tending to the Heartstone, their hands glowing faintly as they channeled its energy. They were the Whisper Keepers. Then the images shifted. A tremor ran through the crystal. Shadows began to creep into the idyllic scene. Dark figures, cloaked and silent, emerged from the edges of the forest, carrying strange, glowing instruments. They moved with a purpose, a cold, calculating resolve. The Whisper Keepers, sensing the threat, rallied. They tried to defend the Heartstone, channeling its light, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. But the intruders were not seeking to destroy, they sought to take. They planted their strange instruments into the earth around the Heartstone, and the crystal pillar in Alara's vision pulsed with pain. The light of the Heartstone began to dim, slowly, inexorably. The Whisper Keepers fought valiantly, but their numbers were few, their methods peaceful. They could not withstand the sustained drain. One by one, their glows faded. The village itself began to lose its vibrancy, the silverbark trees dulling, the flowers wilting. The last image in the crystal was of an old woman, her face etched with sorrow, standing before the fading Heartstone. She reached out, placing her hands on its surface, and a final desperate surge of magic flowed from her. Not to fight, but to seal. To protect what remained. The chamber around the Heartstone, the very opening Alara had found, seemed to close, to hide itself, to sleep, waiting for a time when it could be reawakened. And as the old woman collapsed, the crystal pillar showed her vision, a small, bright light, far in the future. A child with eyes like forest pools, drawn by the whispering. Alara. The images faded, leaving her breathless, her mind reeling. This wasn't just a story. It was a memory, a prophecy. The Heartstone hadn't just been left to slumber. It had been actively sealed, and now, something was breaking that seal, reactivating the ancient drain. The metallic, bitter scent, the mechanical egg-deep tick-tick-ticky from the opening, all made terrifying sense. The intruders were back, or their methods were, and they were trying to finish what they had started generations ago. To drain the Heartstone, to steal the magic of the Whispering Woods. And she, Alara, was the one who had been called. The last Whisper Keeper, perhaps. Or the first of a new generation. The whispering, now a clear, resonant hum throughout the chamber, confirmed it. Kunmo listener. You are the chosen. The Heartstone calls. The shadows return. A chill that had nothing to do with the temperature ran through Alara. She was just a girl. What could she possibly do against such an ancient, powerful threat? Yet, looking around the shimmering chamber, feeling the pure, vibrant magic of the whispering flowing through her, she also felt a strange sense of resolve. The magic of the woods was not a weapon, but a living thing. And living things, even when threatened, fought to survive. She had to find a way. She had to understand how to reignite the Heartstone, how to protect Silverwood Glade. The whispering would guide her, she knew. But the path ahead felt long, and filled with unknown dangers. She took a deep breath, the sweet, magical air filling her lungs. The tick-tick-tick from the opening in the dream oak seemed to grow louder, more insistent, even from this ethereal chamber. Time was running out. She had to go back. She had to tell Lyra. She had to learn what it meant to be a Whisper Keeper. With a final determined glance at the memory crystal, Alara turned and stepped back into the shimmering corridor, ready to face the challenge that awaited her. The fate of Silverwood Glade, and perhaps the Whispering Woods themselves, rested on her small, brave shoulders. The shimmering corridor, once a path of gentle light, now pulsed with an unsettling urgency. The ethereal glow flickered, mirroring the frantic beating of Alara's heart. The sound from the dream oak, a deep, resonant hum that had been a distant murmur in the memory chamber, now vibrated through the very air around her, growing in volume and intensity with each step she took. It was no longer a hum, but a thrumming, an ancient drumbeat of alarm echoing through the fabric of the dream realm itself. She pushed through it, a whisper of wind in her wake, her small hands outstretched as if to part the shimmering veil. The corridor seemed to stretch, the path lengthening with every surge of the dream oak's warning. Panic pricked at her, a cold, sharp sensation, but determination burned brighter. Lyra.c. She had to reach Lyra. With a final, desperate surge of will, Lyra burst forth from the shimmering path, tumbling out of the opening in the dream oak's trunk and landing softly on the mossy floor of the hollow. The thrumming sound, dulled by her return to the physical world, still reverberated through the very earth beneath her, a silent tremor. The air in the hollow felt heavier, charged with an unnameable tension. The usually vibrant greens of the moss and the deep browns of the ancient wood seemed to have dimmed, as if a shadow had been cast over their very essence. Lyra, who had been sitting patiently, her eyes closed, now opened them with a start. Her usually calm face was etched with concern, her wise eyes immediately locking onto Elara. Elara, you returned sooner than I expected. What did you see? What did you feel? Elara scrambled to her feet, her breath coming in short, quick gasps. Lyra, it was incredible and terrifying. I saw a crystal, a memory crystal filled with light, and I heard whispers, so many whispers like the wind through the leaves, but deeper, older. And then the dream oak. It started to hum. A warning. Louder and louder and louder. She clutched at her chest, still feeling the phantom vibration of the dream oak's alarm. What does it mean, Lyra? What is a whisper keeper? Lyra rose slowly, her movements fluid and graceful, like a willow swaying in a gentle breeze. She reached out and took Elara's small hands in her own, her touch warm and reassuring. Come, child. We have little time, but enough for understanding. The dream oak's song is indeed a warning, one I have felt stirring in my own heart for weeks, but never so clearly as now. It confirms what I suspected the moment you first heard the whispers. She led Elara to a softer patch of moss, seating them both. The air grew still, the leaves of the dream oak overhead rustling with a sudden silent urgency, as if listening. The whispering woods are not merely trees and streams, Elara, Lyra began, her voice soft but resonant, like the deep roots of the forest itself. They are a living, breathing entity, connected by an ancient magic, a web of energy that flows through every leaf, every drop of dew, every stone. This magic speaks constantly in a language too subtle for most to hear. It whispers of life, of growth, of joy, and sometimes of sorrow or warning. These are the whispers you have heard, the voices of the woods themselves. Elara listened, captivated, her gaze fixed on Lyra's face. But how can I hear them? And why now? Because you, Elara, are a whisper keeper, Lyra explained, a gentle smile gracing her lips, though her eyes remained shadowed with worry. It is a rare and ancient lineage, a gift passed down through generations, often dormant for centuries until a time of great need. The memory crystal you saw in the dream oak's heart, that was the collective memory of past whisper keepers, their experiences, their wisdom, their very essence, stored there, waiting for the one who would next carry the mantle. Each flash of light you saw was a moment of insight, a fragment of truth, meant to awaken you around inherent connection. A whisper keeper listens to the heart of the woods, Lyra continued, her voice gaining a deeper resonance. They are the bridge between the silent language of nature and the understanding of its sentient beings. They are the guardians of the balance, the first to know when the harmony of the woods is threatened. And that, Elara, is why you are hearing the whispers now, and why the dream oak sings its song of alarm. Elara felt a thrill, a mixture of awe and trepidation, ripple through her. Threatened? But by what? Lyra's gaze drifted upwards, towards the deepest canopy of the dream oak, then beyond, to the edges of the glade. For generations, the whispering woods have been protected by the ancient pacts and the slumbering magic of the land. But sometimes, a shadow stirs from the forgotten lands beyond our borders, a disharmony that seeks to silence the whispers, to drain the very life from the magic itself. We call it the creeping silence. Elara shivered. The name itself sent a cold dread through her. The creeping silence. It is not a creature, not a beast with teeth and claws, Lyra clarified, her voice hushed. It is a blight of the spirit, a gradual draining of vibrancy, a slowing of the ancient pulse. It begins subtly, with a hush where there should be birdsong, a dullness where there should be vibrant color, a chill where there should be warmth. Then it seeks to stifle the whispers themselves, to sever the connection between the woods and those who listen. If the whispers fall silent, the magic fades, and the woods, they would become... As Lyra spoke, Elara felt a peculiar sensation. It wasn't a sound she heard with her ears, but a feeling that resonated deep within her chest, a faint but growing discord. The vibrant green moss beneath them seemed to dull ever so slightly, the air around them feeling subtly cooler, heavier. It was as if the very light was being absorbed, not by shadows, but by an absence of light. I feel it, Elara whispered, her eyes wide. A coldness, a quietness. It's like the colors are fading just a little. She looked at Lyra, her brow furrowed. Is this the creeping silence? Lyra nodded gravely. Indeed, little keeper. It has begun to seep into the fringes of Silverwood Glade. The dream oak's insistent thrumming is its cry against this encroaching emptiness. You, with your awakened senses, are now feeling its advance. Elara closed her eyes, focusing. The feeling intensified. It was like a faint static, a muffling blanket descending over the subtle symphony of the forest. She could still hear the distant chatter of squirrels, the rustle of leaves, but they felt muted, somehow less real, as if she were listening from behind a thick pane of glass. And beneath it all, a growing silence, an unnatural void. Lyra placed a hand on Elara's shoulder. Do not fear, Elara. Your gift is not merely to hear but to responden. The Whisper Keepers of old did not simply listen to the warnings, they acted upon them. Your connection to the whispers is also a conduit for the wood's own magic, a way to channel its strength and resilience against such threats. Elara opened her eyes, a spark of resolve replacing the fear. What do I do? How do I stop it? The creeping silence draws its strength from absence, from forgetting, from the erosion of ancient connections, Lyra explained. To counteract it, we must reinforce the very things it seeks to diminish. We must strengthen the whispers, rekindle the ancient pacts, and remind the woods of their own vibrant heart. She stood, her gaze sweeping across the hollow, then settling on a gnarled root of the dream oak that spiraled deep into the earth. The memory crystal you saw was but a fragment of the Whisper Keeper's legacy. There are others, scattered throughout the Whispering Woods, places of deep magic and ancient lore, where the whispers are strongest. These are called the Echoing Groves. The Echoing Groves. Elara repeated, the words feeling ancient and powerful on her tongue. Each grove holds a piece of the wood's memory, a unique resonance of its magic, Lyra confirmed. If the whispers are fading, we must awaken these groves, remind them of their purpose, and draw their power together to form a protective shield against the creeping silence. The dream oak has shown you the first step, Elara. It has awakened your sight and your hearing. Now, we must awaken your touch, your voice, your ability to channel the whispers. Your ability to channel the whispers. Lyra knelt beside Elara again, her eyes shining with a deep, calm wisdom. To do this, you must journey to the nearest echoing grove, the Grove of Whispering Stones. It lies hidden deep within the sunken glade beyond the shifting mists. There, you must seek out the Heartstone, a crystal much like the one you glimpsed, but imbued with the living pulse of that specific grove. You must learn to listen to its whispers, to resonate with its ancient song, and to awaken its protective magic. Elara's heart fluttered with a mix of excitement and trepidation. A journey to a hidden grove, beyond shifting mists. It sounded like something out of the oldest tales. But how will I know where to go? How will I find the Heartstone? Lyra smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. Your gift, little Whisper Keeper, is your guide. The whispers themselves will lead you. As you draw closer to the Grove of Whispering Stones, the whispers will grow stronger, guiding your steps. And when you are near the Heartstone, its own ancient song will call to you, a melody only you can truly hear. She then reached into a small pouch at her waist, pulling out a smooth, river-worn stone, no bigger than Elara's thumb. It was a dull gray, unremarkable at first glance. This is a waystone. It has no magic of its own, but it will help you focus your senses. Hold it in your hand and let it ground you. When you feel lost or the whispers become too faint, simply hold the waystone and close your eyes and listen. It will help you discern the true path from the distractions. Elara carefully took the waystone. It felt surprisingly cool and smooth in her palm. A faint, almost imperceptible warmth began to spread from it, settling her racing thoughts. The journey will not be without its challenges, Lyra continued, her voice growing serious. The creeping silence will try to mislead you, to sow doubt and fear. It will try to make the path unclear, to silence the whispers that guide you. You must trust your senses, trust the whispers, and most importantly, trust the strength and light within your own heart. Elara looked down at the waystone, then up at Lyra. Will you come with me? Lyra shook her head gently. My role is here, at the heart of the dream oak, to keep its song strong for as long as I can, to anchor the magic of Silverwood Glade. And this journey, Elara, is one you must undertake alone. It is how Whisper Keepers truly awaken their power. But I will be with you in spirit, guiding you from afar, and the whispers will be your constant companions. Elara felt a pang of nervousness. Alone? She was so small, and the woods were so vast. But then, she thought of the memory crystal, shining with the wisdom of generations, and the insistent thrumming of the dream oak, a call to action. She was a Whisper Keeper. This was her purpose. The sunken glade lies to the west, beyond the ancient willow weep, Lyra instructed, pointing a slender finger towards a path less traveled, almost overgrown with thick ferns and moss. Follow the path of the moon petal flowers. They only bloom where the ancient magic is strongest, and the creeping silence cannot easily touch them. They will guide you through the initial stretch of woods where the path begins to fade. Elara nodded, absorbing every word. Her mind, usually filled with the simple joys of chasing fireflies or listening to forest tales, was now alight with a new purpose, a grand adventure. Once you pass the willow weep, the mists begin, Lyra cautioned. They are not ordinary mists, Elara. They shift and swirl, trying to confuse travelers. Elara stood, clutching the waystone. The air in the hollow, though still subtly dampened by the encroaching silence, felt charged with anticipation. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the sweet, damp scent of moss and ancient wood. The murmuring whispers, though still faint, felt clearer now, speaking directly to her, urging her forward. She looked at Lyra, a newfound resolve shining in her eyes. I understand, Lyra. I will find the grove of whispering stones. I will awaken its magic. Lyra smiled, a proud, tender expression. I know you will, little keeper. May the whispers guide your steps and the light of your heart illuminate your path. With a final reassuring squeeze of Elara's hand, Lyra stepped back. Elara turned towards the western path, her small figure silhouetted against the deepening twilight that seemed to gather more quickly than usual. The vibrant moon petal flowers, their petals glowing with a soft ethereal light, already dotted the ground, forming a faint, luminous trail into the deeper woods. As she stepped onto the path, the soft moss cushioning her tread, Elara felt the whispers grow ever so slightly stronger. They were a delicate hum, a gentle pull, a subtle shift in the air that spoke only to her. She held the waystone tightly, feeling its cool, grounding presence. The weight of her task settled upon her, but it was not a burden. It was a calling. The fate of Silverwood Glade, and perhaps the whispering woods themselves, rested on her small, brave shoulders, and for the first time, Elara felt ready to carry it. The journey had truly begun. Elara stepped forward, the forest floor a tapestry of soft moss and fallen leaves beneath her worn boots. The whispers, faint as they were, coalesced into a gentle current, pulling her deeper into the whispering woods, away from the familiar paths of Silverwood Glade. The air grew cooler, imbued with the scent of damp earth and something sweet, like night-blooming jasmine and ancient secrets. Sunlight, once dappled, now struggled to pierce the colossal canopy of ancient trees, whose branches intertwined overhead, forming a living cathedral. Their bark was a mosaic of greens and browns, some glowing faintly with phosphorescent fungi, others draped in curtains of silver-green moss that swayed with unseen breezes. The waystone in her palm throbbed with a soft, rhythmic pulse, mirroring the beat of her own heart. It was a comforting weight, a tiny star against her skin. The whispers, which had been a general hum, now seemed to carry a faint melody, a wordless, ethereal song that resonated deep within her spirit. It wasn't a sound her ears could truly perceive, but rather a feeling, a knowing, a gentle nudge in a specific direction. She passed beneath towering ferns that unfurled like emerald wings, their fronds brushing softly against her cheeks. Strange flowers, unlike any she'd seen in the glade, bloomed in the shadows. Bells of amethyst that chimed silently in the magical currents, and star-shaped blossoms that pulsed with a soft inner light. Every rustle of leaves, every distant hoot of an owl, every drip of dew from a branch seemed imbued with a deeper meaning, a secret language Elara was only just beginning to learn. As she ventured further, the path grew less defined, dissolving into a labyrinth of roots and mossy stones. Yet, the whispers intensified, guiding her with an unerring certainty. They led her to a clearing, a small circular space bathed in an otherworldly twilight. Here, the trees seemed even older, their trunks gnarled and twisted like the limbs of sleeping giants. In the center of the clearing stood a single, enormous oak, its bark a deep ancient gray, studded with glowing sapphire blue mushrooms. This tree, unlike the others, seemed to hum with a tangible energy, a vibrant life force that made the air shimmer. As Elara approached, a flicker of movement caught her eye. High up on one of the oak's lowest branches, something darted. It was small, no bigger than her thumb, with iridescent wings that shimmered through the spectrum of the rainbow. A glimmering. Elara had heard tales of them, mischievous sprites of pure light and magic, rarely seen by human eyes. This one, however, seemed to be waiting for her. It hovered for a moment, its tiny body a kaleidoscope of shifting colors, then zipped down, circling her head with a soft musical buzz. "Greetings, little wanderer," a voice chimed high and sweet like tiny bells. It wasn't the Glimmerwing speaking, not exactly, but the sound seemed to emanate from its very presence, echoing in the clearing. It has been long since a heart-bearer walked these ancient ways. Elara stopped, her heart fluttering like the Glimmerwing's wings. "A heart-bearer," she whispered, looking around but saw no one else. The Glimmerwing zipped closer, hovering inches from her nose, its multifaceted eyes sparkling with ancient wisdom and playful mischief. Indeed, one who carries the song of the glade in her spirit, and the promise of the woods in her hand. It gestured with a tiny translucent hand towards the waystone Elara clutched. "The stone knows you, and you it, but do you know it?" Elara looked down at the smooth, cool stone. "It guides me," she said simply, "and it feels comforting." "Comfort is but the surface of the deep well," the Glimmerwing chirped, darting back to the branch. "The stone is a key, a conduit. It listens to the woods, and the woods listen to it. But it also listens to you, your will, your need, your truth." It paused, its light dimming slightly, as if in thought. "The woods have many paths, Heartbearer. Some are bright, some are shadowed. To find the path to healing, you must first learn to see with more than just your eyes." As the Glimmerwing spoke, the sapphire mushrooms on the ancient oak began to glow brighter, casting dancing shadows around the clearing. A soft mist began to curl from the base of the tree, swirling around Elara's ankles. The whispers in the air grew louder, no longer just a hum, but a chorus of gentle, overlapping voices, too faint to distinguish words, yet full of profound meaning. "The blight," Elara finally said, her voice small but firm. "It silences the glade. It steals the light. The whispers, they are fading there." The Glimmerwing descended again, circling the waystone. "Ah, the great silence. A sorrow that touches us all. But to fight a shadow, one must understand its nature. The blight feeds not on light, but on forgetting, on silence, on the severing of connections. It began as a tiny crack, a single lost memory, and grew like a weed, until it threatened to choke the very heart of the woods." "How do I fight it?" Elara asked, her gaze fixed on the glowing mushrooms. "You seek the lost song, the forgotten name," the Glimmerwing replied, its voice growing more serious. "The blight cannot abide remembrance, cannot stand the vibrant pulse of truth. The waystone can help you remember, Elara, but you must open yourself to its song. Here, under the elder oak where the veil between worlds is thinnest, you may begin. The glimmerwing landed gently on the back of Elara's hand, its tiny weight surprisingly warm. Close your eyes, Heartbearer. Feel the pulse of the waystone. Let its light mingle with the light of the elder oak. Listen, not with your ears, but with your spirit. Elara did as she was told. She closed her eyes, clutching the waystone, focusing on its cool, smooth surface. She felt the glimmerwing's gentle presence on her hand, heard the gentle hum of the elder oak, and the growing symphony of whispers all around her. She focused on the feeling of connection, of belonging, of the deep love she held for Silverwood Glade. She poured her hope, her fear, her determination into the stone. Slowly, the waystone began to warm, radiating a soft inner glow that seeped through her closed eyelids. The whispers coalesced, not into words, but into images. She saw a flash of light, like a falling star, streaking through a boundless green landscape. She saw ancient hands tending to a vibrant garden, heard the echo of a forgotten lullaby, felt the deep, resonant thrum of the earth itself. Then the images shifted, becoming less clear, more fragmented. A creeping gray mist, like a hungry smoke, began to obscure the vibrant colors. A silence heavy and cold began to fall. The lullaby faded to a whisper, then to nothing. A gasp escaped Elara's lips. She opened her eyes. The glimmering had flown, but the sapphire mushrooms on the elder oak pulsed with an urgent rhythm. The mist around her ankles was thicker, swirling with faint silver motes of light. The waystone in her hand now glowed steadily, a soft ethereal azure, its light chasing away the shadows beneath the trees. The blight feeds on forgotten magic, Elara murmured, the words forming in her mind as if placed there by the whispers. It silences the ancient songs. The glimmerwing reappeared, hovering before her face. You see, Heartbearer, you truly see. The blight is not a creature but a forgetting. A wound in the very memory of the woods. It steals the vibrancy, the names, the stories that give life to magic. To heal it, you must find where the blight has woven its deepest web of silence. You must find the heart song of the woods, the ancient melody that weaves all life together. Where do I find it? Elara asked, her voice filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The waystone felt like a part of her now, a beacon. The heart song lies in the echoing caves where the first whispers of the woods were born, the glimmerwing explained, its voice now tinged with a hint of melancholy. But the path to the caves is veiled, guarded by riddles and spirits of forgotten lore. It is a journey for one who understands the language of silence and the power of a single truth. It pointed with a tiny glowing finger towards the deeper, darker parts of the forest, where the ancient trees stood like sentinels against the encroaching twilight. Follow the shimmer of the moon petal flowers. They will guide you through the gloomwood thicket. With a final bright flash, the glimmerwing zipped upwards, vanishing into the canopy of the elder oak, leaving Elara alone in the clearing. But she wasn't truly alone. The waystone hummed in her hand, the whispers swirled around her, and the sapphire mushrooms pulsed, a silent promise of guidance. She felt a surge of courage. The path was clearer now, though still shrouded in mystery. Elara took a deep breath, clutching the waystone. She peered into the direction the glimmerwing had indicated. The trees here were denser, their shadows deeper, but she could just make out faint, silvery glimmers further within, the moon petal flowers. They seemed to float like tiny lanterns in the encroaching dusk, their petals unfurling to catch the dim light. She stepped out of the clearing, leaving the elder oak and its sapphire mushrooms behind, and entered the gloomwood thicket. The air immediately grew thicker, cooler, and the scent of damp earth was mingled with a faint, metallic tang. The trees here were different too, tall, slender giants with bark like polished obsidian, their branches weaving a tight, almost impenetrable canopy. The moon petal flowers, however, were an exquisite guide. Each one pulsed with a soft internal luminescence, their silvery light creating a winding trail through the dense undergrowth. The thicket was quieter than the elder oak clearing. The chorus of whispers was muted here, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant, soft hoot of a forest owl. Elara noticed that even the ground beneath her feet was different. Instead of soft moss, it was a springy carpet of dark, velvety ferns and curious, bell-shaped fungi that released tiny puffs of luminescent spores when she brushed against them. As she followed the shimmering moon petals, A new sensation began to prickle at her skin. It was a faint, almost imperceptible sadness, a feeling of melancholy that seemed to permeate the very air of the gloomwood thicket. It wasn't menacing, but it was heavy, like a quiet sigh. This, she realized, must be a subtle effect of the blight, a slow draining of joy and vibrancy, even in these deeper parts of the woods. The waystone responded, its azure glow intensifying slightly, pushing back against the encroaching sadness, a warm, steady presence in her hand. The moon petals led her to a narrow, winding path that descended gradually into a hollow. Here, the trees gave way to a shimmering curtain of silvery vines, thick and intertwined, that seemed to vibrate with a silent song. This was not a natural growth. It felt like a deliberate veil, a boundary. As Elara approached, the waystone pulsed with a stronger beat, and the whispers, though faint, seemed to emanate directly from the vine curtain itself. She reached out a hand, hesitating. The vines looked delicate, yet formidable. As her fingers grazed the shimmering surface, the vines parted, not by her touch, but by a sudden shift in the air, revealing a hidden archway beyond. The archway was carved from a single smooth piece of gray stone, ancient and worn, depicting symbols Elara had never seen before, swirling patterns that mimicked the flow of water and wind, and figures that seemed to be half plant, half animal. Beneath the archway, the path continued, but the light changed dramatically. The moon petals ceased, and the only illumination came from strange, glowing crystals embedded in the cavern walls that now enclosed her. This was not an open forest anymore. This was a passage, leading deep into the earth. The air grew damp and cool, carrying a scent of mineral and ancient stone. Elara stepped through the archway, her heart thrumming with anticipation. The passage was narrow at first, twisting and turning, the glowing crystals casting long, dancing shadows. The whispers here were different too, echoing off the stone walls, creating a soft ethereal resonance that felt like a breath held for centuries. They were not guiding her forward anymore, but surrounding her, enveloping her, as if the very stone was listening. After what felt like a long time, the passage opened into a vast cavern. Elara gasped, her eyes widening in wonder. This was no ordinary cave. The ceiling soared far above, lost in darkness, but the cavern floor was a landscape of shimmering, crystalline formations. Pillars of amethyst and quartz rose like silent sentinels, glowing with an inner light that painted the cavern in hues of violet, rose, and brilliant white. A silent underground stream, its waters so clear they seemed invisible, wound its way through the crystalline garden, creating a network of shimmering pools. And in the center of the cavern, bathed in the combined glow of countless crystals, stood an enormous, ancient tree. It was unlike any tree she had ever seen, even the elder oak. Its trunk was not bark, but polished, shimmering pearl, radiating a soft opalescent light. Its branches, delicate as spun glass, bore no leaves, but instead were adorned with countless hanging chimes, each one carved from a different, glowing crystal. This tree, Elara realized, must be the heart song tree, the very core of the wood's ancient melody. But something was wrong. Though the tree was beautiful, it was also silent. The crystal chimes, though sparkling, hung still, not a single one swaying, not a single note ringing out. A layer of fine silvery dust, like powdered moonlight, coated everything, the pearl trunk, the glass-like branches, the chimes, even the crystalline formations on the cavern floor. It was beautiful, but it felt frozen, asleep. The whispers in the cavern were almost overwhelming now, a soft, sorrowful symphony, emanating from the silent chimes, from the still water, from the very air itself. They spoke of a deep slumber, of a song forgotten, of a magic held captive. As Elara approached the heart song tree, her boots crunching softly on the silvery dust, she noticed something else. At the very base of the tree, where its pearlescent trunk met the crystalline floor, was a swirling vortex of deep inky shadow. It wasn't a physical shadow, but a darkness that seemed to absorb all light, a void that pulsed with a quiet, insidious energy. This was the heart of the blight, she realized, its silent, suffocating grip on the most sacred place in the woods. The waystone in her hand vibrated wildly, its azure glow intensifying to a brilliant beacon, pushing back against the oppressive darkness. It felt warm, almost hot now, as if eager to act. Elara could feel the ancient magic of the cavern, the immense power of the heart song tree, stirring around her, yearning for release. But how? How could she awaken a song that had been silenced for so long? How could she banish a shadow that fed on forgetting? She reached out a hesitant hand, her fingers trembling slightly, towards one of the crystal chimes. It was cool and smooth beneath her touch, but utterly still. She looked at the inky vortex at the tree's base, then back at the waystone. The Glimmerwing's words echoed in her mind. The blight feeds not on light but on forgetting, on silence, on the severing of connections. To fight a shadow, one must understand its nature. You seek the lost song, the forgotten name. The blight cannot abide remembrance, cannot stand the vibrant pulse of truth. And then, another memory from the Glimmerwing's words. The waystone listens to the woods, and the woods listen to it. But it also listens to a G. Your will, your need, your truth. Elara closed her eyes again, taking a deep breath. She pressed the waystone against her heart, feeling its powerful thrum. She thought of Silverwood Glade, of its once vibrant colors, its laughter, its abundant life. She thought of the gentle whispers that had always filled its air, the songs of the birds, the rustle of leaves, the murmur of the stream. She remembered the feeling of warmth and safety the glade had always provided. She focused all her will, all her love, all her yearning for the glade's return to health, into the waystone. She didn't know what to do, but she knew she had to try. She opened her mouth and, guided by an instinct she didn't understand, began to hum. It was a simple, wordless melody, a lullaby her grandmother used to sing, a song of comfort and hope. It was her truth, her memory, her connection. As her hum filled the silent cavern, soft and clear, a remarkable thing happened. The waystone pulsed with a pure, brilliant light, no longer just azure, but shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow, like the Glimmerwing's wings. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the cavern floor. Then, with a soft inting, one of the crystal chimes on the heartsong tree swayed. Just once, a single delicate note, clear as fresh spring water, resonated through the air. Elara's eyes flew open. The inky shadow at the tree's base seemed to recoil slightly, shrinking just a fraction. Another chime swayed, then another, each releasing its unique pure note. The silvery dust on the branches began to shimmer, then slowly, imperceptibly to dissolve, revealing the smooth, polished crystal beneath. The whispers in the cavern intensified, no longer sorrowful, but filled with a growing anticipation. She wasn't singing words, just humming, but it was her song, her memory, her hope flowing through the waystone, into the heart of the woods. The chimes began to swing with more confidence, a gentle rising symphony of crystal and light. The heartsong tree, silent for so long, was beginning to awaken. The pure, vibrant magic of the woods was stirring, responding to her truth, her connection. The blight, the silent forgetting, was being challenged by the oldest, most powerful magic of all, remembrance. Elara kept humming, her voice gaining strength, her heart filled with a fierce, quiet joy. The cavern was slowly filling with light and music, a melody that resonated deep within her bones. She knew this was just the beginning, that the blight was ancient and strong, but she also knew with absolute certainty that the heartsong could be found again. With the waystone glowing in her hand, and the chimes of the heartsong tree beginning to sing, Elara felt a profound sense of rightness. The woods were remembering, and she was helping them find their voice again. The journey had truly begun, and now, the song had begun too. The waystone pulsed, vibrating with the heartsong's rhythm, a silent tune Elara felt deep within her bones. The chimes of the heartsong tree, now a steady chorus, spread outwards like ripples, stirring dormant life. Saplings stretched unseen roots, and ancient mosses, long dulled by the blight, began to glow with emerald light. Yet as the song strengthened, a creeping chill would seep into the air, making shadows writhe unnaturally. Whispers of doubt, like dry leaves skittering across a barren path, tried to cloud Elara's mind, urging her to turn back. But the waystone's light flickered defiantly, a beacon against the gloom, and the growing heartsong echoed her resolve. She pressed on, buoyed by the wood's tentative awakening. Deeper she ventured, the waystone illuminating a path that materialized just for her. What had been muted grays and browns now shimmered with tentative greens and golds. Dew-kissed spiderwebs caught light like forgotten spells. Timid glowworms blinked back to life in a hollow log, their tiny lanterns flickering with renewed hope. The air, once heavy and still, now carried the faint, sweet scent of unfurling blossoms and damp, rich earth. The woods were not just remembering, they were eye-breathing again, each rustle and whisper a fragile note in the emerging symphony. Finally, the waystone led her to a hidden glade, a place bearing the deepest scars of the blight, yet humming with undeniable power. Gnarled roots clawed at the earth, surrounding a clearing where nothing grew. But in the very center, bathed in an ethereal glow, was not an object, but a shimmering pool of pure liquid light. This was it, the wellspring of the heart song, the very core of the wood's being, a reservoir of collective life force and magic. The chimes of the heart song tree were merely a distant echo of this profound living silence. Ella understood. The waystone was not just a guide, but a conduit, a key. With trembling hands she knelt by the luminous pool, its gentle light reflecting in her wide, awestruck eyes. She carefully lowered the glowing waystone into the shimmering liquid. As it submerged, a wave of incandescent light, warm and vibrant, erupted from the pool, pushing outwards in an expanding sphere of pure energy. The very ground trembled, not with fear, but with a surge of life. The blight, ancient and malevolent, shrieked a silent, defeated protest as it recoiled, its insidious tendrils dissolving like mist in the morning sun. The woods responded instantly, joyously. Barren trees unfurled new leaves, their branches reaching skyward in a verdant embrace. Flowers in hues Elara had never imagined burst into bloom, releasing intoxicating perfumes. Birdsong, a symphony of forgotten melodies, filled the air, mingling with the rustle of awakening creatures and the gentle hum of the heart song, now singing fully, a magnificent chorus woven from the forest's fabric. The waystone, its purpose fulfilled, dissolved into the luminous pool, becoming one with the heart song, its light an eternal part of the wood's glow. Elara, exhausted but filled with an overwhelming sense of peace and accomplishment, watched the transformation, a quiet guardian to the miracle she had helped bring forth. The blight was not entirely vanquished. Shadows would always linger at the edges of light, but its chokehold on the woods was broken. The heart song would sing on, a vibrant, living melody that promised enduring magic and renewal. As the first stars began to twinkle through the newly verdant canopy, Elara lay down, feeling the gentle pulse of the woods beneath her, the heart song humming a lullaby in her soul. She closed her eyes, knowing that the magic had returned, and she was forever a part of its beautiful, unending story.